Could it be 2022 is upon us? And how will 2022 be better than 2021? It won't take much to prove that. Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show Live, and we are here with the New Year's excitement and coming in from around the world, zooming in on our studio here in Dallas, Texas, the epicenter of I guess it's the great pushback in the nation. Of course, Florida and Texas are the two states that everybody really is moving into. I mean, they're coming in. By the way, somebody just moved in. Oh, it's not Wolfgang Puck, but it's some famous chef from California who had the TV show on, like, I didn't watch it, but it's like the chef competition and all that stuff. What's
Bobby
his name?
Flay?
Nah, it's somebody else. The audience is writing it down right now on Facebook and on YouTube. And what's his name, Jonathan? Who is he?
No, Gordon lives in London. Gordon moved here?
Moving here to Texas.
I'm going to Google it now. Keep going, Phil, and I'll find the answer.
I was told he's leaving California to come to Texas. That's what I was told.
Wow.
But like so many other people, like Elon Musk, like Joe Rogan, like Ben Shapiro didn't do. He was in Nashville. All right, so listen.
It is Gordon.
You're acting surprised that I got it right.
No, not you, Jonathan, because I thought he lived in London with his family. He probably has multiple homes. But yeah, he's moving his restaurant headquarters to Texas. That's what it is.
That's what I'm talking about, people. So listen, this is the New Year moment. It's a good time to reset. I think it's the Hebrew year 5782, which we only know because by coincidence, it happens to correspond to the Hebrew Strong's Concordance. Did you know the Strong Concordance has numbers, 4-digit numbers and 3-digit numbers, and that 5782 in the Hebrew Concordance is... Go ahead, Mercedes. You're laughing.
No, I just it's fine. It's fine.
I knew this before you told me. I knew.
No, I've been banging this drum since before the Jewish New Year that 5782, like you said, in the Strong Concordance, is actually the word for awakening. And so it's just great. It happens all the time. I know a lot of people don't get the window into what it's like working with you, but you'll have a great idea, and then all of a sudden Lance has a really great idea that's almost identical to your idea, and you're like, yeah, I love that idea. Let's go with that idea.
Well, the fact of the matter is, when I was writing about what's going to be happening in this season, which is really, it's a prophecy for, I'd say, the decade. That was the last book we wrote. It's like a decade prophetic. And I said that the key chapter is going to be 2 chapters in the Bible in the little-known prophet named Haggai. And Haggai, the prophet during the era of Cyrus, spoke to the Jewish people that had returned to Jerusalem to rebuild their temple. And the Lord said, I'm shaking the heavens and the earth. I'm shaking the sea and the dry land. And so suddenly you run into this unique prophecy that describes global shaking and overturning of nations during the period of Cyrus, and the prophecies occur during the Feast of Tabernacles, the month of Tabernacles. So it's all pregnant with end time significance. But the word of the Lord that came by Haggai was that the reason why these devastations were coming upon the people that were returning to Jerusalem after their 70 years of captivity in Babylon was because they weren't building what God wanted them to build. The church wasn't on God's building project. They were on their own. And so the Lord said, I'm basically I'm shutting you all down. I'm shutting the nations down, and I'm shaking everything. It sounds so much like what's going on with this COVID situation. And America is the preeminent Gentile nation. And Jesus did say that Jerusalem will be trodden under the foot of men until the time of the Gentiles is coming to an end. And then, and really in 1967, as Jerusalem came back into the orbit of the state of Israel and the Jewish people, that was the fulfillment of a prophetic timeline when Jesus said, now we enter the decline of the Gentile era. I remember Pat Robertson years ago, year 2000, he wrote, going into the new millennium, the United States is the top of the pyramid of Gentile nations. We are the global economic power with banking. We're the global military power projecting our system of law in terms of contractual. Everyone has to work with the American and Western idea of contractual relationship, rule of law. And basically, America projected its Gentile power dominance up until the period in which our Cyrus, Trump, was removed from office, and I think lawlessly removed. At which point the spirit of lawlessness and Antichrist, which is the spirit of lawlessness, according to 1 Thessalonians, the spirit of Antichrist is lawlessness, that we're going to the last days. And with that comes the decline of the Gentile power of America. We were there in 1967, and it looks like our decline has begun. Now, will that decline be checked? Will there be recovery? Will there be a period of, as I'm going to go in today in the broadcast, predictions? It's time for some prophetic predictions, people. I believe that God is going to extend the period of grace on America. It's almost like, if you remember Joshua being in a battle and he was dealing with enemies, and as the day went on, Joshua needed more time in order to defeat the enemies. And so rather than the sun going down, he called out for the sun to stand still over the valley. And the Lord held the sun in place. It's as though the rotation of the earth was stopped for a critical period of time for an hour or two, so that Joshua was given the extension of time needed to deal with the enemy. I think that America is in 2022 going to experience the battle at the gates of influence, because hell is occupying media, and hell is occupying academia, and hell is occupying the Justice Department, the political mechanisms in America. Sorry to say, it's becoming a woke military. Hell has moved into Wall Streets, corporate suites. Hell has moved into Hollywood. And what God is doing is he's raising up competing structures, which is what Martin Luther did, the Reformation. If a mountain will not change, if it will not respond, then God has a way of dealing with it. And the way that God deals with the mountain is he raises up another mountain against it. So Martin Luther became the religious movement that would deal with the reluctant medieval Catholicism that wouldn't reform. Remembering, Martin Luther was a priest. He wasn't a Lutheran. He was a priest. He wanted reformation in the Catholic Church. Since they wouldn't respond, God raised up a competing system. What you see with Getter, what you see with Gab, what you see with Rumble, what you see, and admittedly, these are humble beginnings, but it's just like in the Bible. It says, those that remember the old structure and see the new one, they wept when they saw but nevertheless, listen, you don't need a whole lot when you're a movement. You just need to have communication. And so if you've got communication, the movement has power. So we're creating our own institutions to go up against the institutions. Or you could say, God is raising up competing spheres for the spheres that will not change. The mountain that won't move will be forced to move by the presence of another mountain.
Love that.
The populist movement is going to become the mountain within the mountain of government that is going to reshape both Republicans and Democrats. I think it goes back to another prediction. It goes back to what Kim Clement said. He said, the Lord says, I'm dissatisfied with both parties. And what I'm doing will not be, the Democrats won't like it and the Republicans won't like it. Well, Donald Trump wasn't liked by either party. He was the populist that ran as a Republican, but the Republicans didn't endorse him. They reluctantly were forced to embrace what we did. The populist movement did it. And so you're going to see the mountain of government shake, because the populist movement will be the new competing sphere or mountain within the mountain of government. It's going to be a firewall to the progression of the left. This is how God's going to hold the sun over the valley of Megiddo, I think it was, and it's going to give Joshua extended time to deal with his enemies. Otherwise, America would be going down. But God's going to give us some extended mercy and grace here. And so, but we've got to deal with our enemies. That's what we're doing in that extended time. It's not sit back and twiddle your thumbs and watch God, eat cake or something and be a spectator. You actually are going to be the involved activist.
Yep.
So I'm seeing in social media, there's going to be the raising up of other, we see it like to an extent with Flashpoint. We see it with Real America's Voice, Steve Bannon's War Room. We see it with our podcast. So we're seeing alternative systems or spheres or mountains coming against the mountain that will not move. God will make it move. And so what happens is gates of influence are on top of these mountains. That's remnant leadership. God raises up new leaders. He raises up new gatekeepers. And so this is all biblical. So when David was going up to take Jerusalem, it was the Jebusites occupied the high places, and they mocked him. And they said, if so much as a fox comes up here, it'll collapse or something like that. But the reality is that David succeeded. And it's ironic that fox was the word that was used, because right now Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson are on the Fox network, the two dominant, Tucker particularly, the two dominant voices in broadcast ratings. And he's on fire like a reformer. So what I'm saying is you're going to see the populist movement retaking ground, and in all 7 mountains, you're going to see a pushback on the woke, corrupt, virus-ridden condition of America, which comes about because of false doctrine, false theology, authorizing false spirits, demons, to take over the high places, so that gatekeepers occupy the gates, human gatekeepers, under the influence of demons and principalities. They occupy academia, they occupy Wall Street, they occupy arts, they occupy media, and God's bringing the battering ram down, bam, 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 to push back. You're seeing it through the school boards. It's happening not in the universities, but it's happening in the local schools, such as in what we saw with in Layton County, Virginia, and what's going on. By midterms, it will be a prairie fire the left will be freaking out over, because it's grassroots. That's what populism is.
For me.
What I'm describing has this biblical model behind it. When Elisha did his final act, a certain king came to him when Elisha was about to die, and he said, he really needed the prophet's intervention for the country. And what are they going to do when you go? And so the king was told by one great act of the prophet to take his arrows and fire an arrow to the window facing the east. And so the king shot the arrow. And then the old prophet propped himself up and said, now take the arrows and smite the ground. And the king went 3 times. And the prophet was furious. The king goes, I don't get it. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And you're mad at me for some abstract act like hitting something? He goes, you don't understand. What you did was an extension of a prophetic act. It reveals something about your condition. You only smote the ground 3 times, therefore you'll have 3 years of victory in battle. If you had smote the ground 5 or 6 times, you would have obliterated your enemies. I'm saying that God is giving us an extension of grace so that we can strike the arrow 5 or 6 times. But that doesn't mean we will. That doesn't mean, I wrote this in 2016. I said, my biggest concern with Donald Trump is that God will provide an intervention for America, and that the church will be so lackluster, flat-footed, and incoherent in its response that the man will have 3 years. And sure enough, he had 3 years, and the final year and a half was under 2 impeachment scenarios and an investigation for Russia. He was hogtied after midterms. We barely squeaked that out. So I felt like we did not have the degree of unity requisite to be able to push. Remember, 60-some% of Americans self-identify as Christians. I'm always confused as to how many that represents, but 40% of the voting Republican Party are Christians.
Wow.
It's a disgrace that we are ignored, our interests are ignored, and we have no access. Apart from Donald Trump, evangelicals are almost half the party, and they're treated with scorn as though we're deplorable Walmart ignoramuses by the elites like McConnell,
Mm-hmm.
and I think even the McCarthys and the other guys that are the Washington Republicans. But nevertheless, I'm telling you that God is giving us the opportunity for hitting back in academia, hitting back in media. And I see this as the lawlessness is in your face this year. That is, yeah, you're absolutely right. As the left states, which is another thing, sheep and goat nations.
Yeah.
People are on me. They're fighting me on sheep and goat nations. Let them fight. I'm right. And the proof of it is it's in your face right now.
100%.
Sheep and goat territories exist in America. There's sheep cities and sanctuary cities for the devil, and they're becoming sanctuary cities for the righteous. And they're in the red states. And the reddest of the red states, where the church is evidently prevailing in the heavenlies, is Florida and Texas. And then you're seeing a shift happening in Colorado right now. They were red and then they went blue, and now they're in purple zone. There's a battle to recover. The church is awakening there.
Wow. Well, so I want to chime in. I have a couple different thoughts, but I wanted to pivot back into the 5782. So just hang with me, and then I want to see what you think of this interpretation.
Wait a second. I just got to say something because I missed something here on the clock. This is important. We're going to talk about this. 5782, the prophetic year. But who do we work with the gold report? Birch gold. I want you guys, because I'm thinking about this. I'm reading this financial study that we were doing here on the program about how much gold you ought to have, because in Haggai, the prophet said, the silver is mine and the gold is mine. I really believe that that God has given a prophetic something in the Bible to talk to us about land, about like the meek shall inherit the earth. I'm just having a renaissance or an awakening, how real estate, people that are actually buying the land and occupying the land because there's something about land and territory and righteousness that I'm seeing where there's windows of investment for those people in real estate. There's windows of investment for people in gold and silver and precious metals. But I want you to go to get a hold of the lancewalnut.com/birch, lancewalnut.com/birch, and download like the 20 or 30 page report they've got on gold, because not all gold is the same. I mean, I have friends of mine that have gold certificates. Like I've got, what did I buy? Which was, it was Iraqi dinars.
Oh, goodness.
And like got all this useless Iraqi dinar paper. And until I talked to a banker, a Christian spirit-filled banker in Abu Dhabi, who was laughing and telling me that all you Christians that are buying these Iraqi dinars, do you understand that every currency is pegged to other currencies? There will never be one currency suddenly like a super high-tech stock breakthrough. Anyway, we've done this stuff. You don't want to invest off of a prophecy. You want to invest with wisdom. By wisdom, wealth is built. So prophetically, you want to find out where the wisdom of God is. Go to that lancewalnut.com/birch and start to study about gold and silver. And we're going to talk more about that in other broadcasts and real estate. And I don't know why you're laughing.
Because I got a joke for you, okay?
Oh.
I heard it last night. Hey, what's the difference between the people in Dubai and the people in Abu Dhabi?
This is so funny. I was laughing. You sent it to me, and you said I don't open your TikToks, but I read it.
So what's the difference between the people in Dubai and Abu Dhabi?
What is the difference between the people in Dubai and the people in Abu Dhabi?
The people in Dubai don't like the Flintstones, but the people in Abu Dhabi do.
The people in Abu Dhabi do.
It's so lame.
I think it's a dad joke.
It's such a dad joke. It's for our friend that lives in Abu Dhabi.
I want to take this moment, maybe it's a natural time to just like take a segue into to getting ready for tomorrow's broadcast, because we're about to open up something, which is the new year, 5782. It's the Hebrew year. There are different prophets. Remember, Bob Jones would do this. I think Chuck Pierce does this. And I got stuck one year filling in for Chuck Pierce. He didn't show up in Jerusalem for an event. And I remember it was Tom Hess called me up. He said, could you fill in for Chuck tonight? I was about to fly out of Jerusalem. And I said, well, okay. He said, well, I need you to do something. Everyone's coming to hear him talk about the new year. Guess what year it was? 5777. This was the year Trump was running for president. And I said, I don't do that. I don't do the number thing. I mean, I get words on what's coming. He said, well, whether you're ready or not, they're coming for that. You can preach whatever you want. So I get on my knees and I go, Lord, I got to fill in for Chuck Pierce. I don't even do this. 5777, this is Rosh Hashanah, the new year. And the 777 means that I am going to perfect my purpose this year for your country. And this is right, I kid you not. As the Hollywood Access video came out and Donald Trump was everyone thought he was going to just like totally lose it. America would never forgive him for the Access Hollywood video and all that stuff he did. But it was 5777. I went and preached that word that night. And it started me off on looking at the Hebrew years differently, the way these other prophets do. And tomorrow, Mercedes will kick us off on the meaning of 5782, what the new year tells us. And so you don't want to miss tomorrow. It's the prophetic code to unlocking the vault of God's purpose in 2022.